I want to bring in NBC's Garrett Haake, who's with the former president in California. Peter Baker is New York Times chief White House correspondent. Peter is an MSNBC political analyst. And Brandy Zadrozny is senior reporter for NBC News, who covers misinformation and extremism. It's good to have all of you here. So, Garrett, the former president said he knows he won in 2016 because of the border. He thinks it's still one of, if not the top issue this year. Strategically, do we know? Is he leaning in because he's just happy to dominate a news cycle? Because he really believes these completely unfounded claims? Is this a strategy, a thought-through strategy?
Chris, I think if you squint hard enough at this, to borrow a phrase from the debate, you can see the concept of a plan for a strategy for Donald Trump here. I mean, you touched on it. He believes immigration and relatedly crime are the two issues that are going to drive this race. I think what he saw here in this kind of right-wing fever swamp on the internet where this story first became promoted was a story that spoke exactly to what he believes his base's fears are about migrant crime in this country. Now, of course, it has not turned out to be true, but Donald Trump was eager to embrace it during the debate on Tuesday. I'm told that his staff was not surprised that this was something that he talked about. And I think now it's become an issue where he and his campaign are going to have to decide, perhaps as soon as a few minutes from now, when what's been described as a press conference, we'll see again if he takes questions, gets underway behind me, if this is an issue he wants to continue to focus on or if he's ready to try to change the subject. Because if his strategy here was to get people focused on Haitian immigration or illegal immigration, of course, which is not the case in Springfield, Ohio, or any of these other ancillary issues, that has certainly not been the outcome here. Instead, we are fact-checking these claims and talking about the ways in which he has talked about this community and the damage that it's done in that community. So I think we'll find out in real time, perhaps very shortly, whether Donald Trump thinks this is a strategy still that he wants to pursue, Chris.
Okay, so Peter, he's not just talking about it, he's posting about it. Images of cats that say, "Don't let them eat us, vote for Trump." Your paper, the New York Times, wrote this, quote, "Their over-the-top imagery gives them the feel of an inside joke. A just kidding is implied, allowing political figures who might otherwise have hesitated to circulate debunked material to get in on it. The reality is beside the point." I mean, is it tongue-in-cheek? Because obviously, Peter, if you ask people in Springfield, where they've had bomb threats at City Hall just yesterday, white supremacists have rallied. This is very serious. So what's going on?
Look, reality has never been the basis of a Donald Trump campaign. Reality is what he says it is. And if you don't think that cats and dogs have been eaten, that's your problem as far as he's concerned. He is spinning narrative, right? And the narrative is a country under invasion by people from outside of the country, from this southern border, who are moving into your neighborhoods. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your resources. They're taking your pets now. And if there are fact checkers who are going to nitpick about the specifics as far as he's concerned, it doesn't really matter. It all fits in the narrative. And what's really striking about this, and Garrett was getting at this, I mean, I've been watching a bunch of Trump rallies lately for a story, and I'm struck by how much immigration is the dominant topic of every single one, no matter what it's supposed to be about. He may talk about, inflation, or he may talk about foreign policy or whatever, but it keeps coming back again and again and again throughout these rallies to immigration. It's almost like a one-issue campaign he's running here. Obviously, he thinks that's a salient one. Obviously, it's the one he thinks that galvanizes his base. It generates anger and motivates people perhaps to vote. And so he thinks it's a winner, and he's going to keep talking about it. But it's a gamble, obviously, because a lot of Americans value immigration and don't see it the same way he does.
I'm going to admit I didn't watch the whole rally last night, but I think it went about 70 minutes, and several reports were that the vast majority of it was about immigration. So that's exactly what you're talking about, Peter. Brandy, let's deal with reality, can we? Let's talk facts. What can you tell us about this neo-Nazi group that really seems to be proud of the fact that they had a major hand in moving this debunked claim, racist claim, forward?
Yeah, so there is a group called Blood Tribe. They are one of a handful of neo-Nazi groups that are sort of rising right now. And there's about 100 members. They are operated by 2 former Marines. And what they do is they go to communities where there is some sort of discord, where last year it was Drag Story Hour. You would see these white nationalists, marching with swastikas. And this year, we've seen them in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We've seen them in Springfield, Ohio. They were trying to get in on the anti-immigration, like you say, thing that the topic's so hot right now. And so white nationalists know that too. And they have been appearing at Springfield rallies. They have been appearing at Springfield City Council meetings and making threatening speeches. And they have been online, and they've been making these memes and pushing this angry, racist rhetoric. And usually that's where it stops, right? For this time, for some reason, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have promoted these claims and refused to back down from them. So for these white nationalists, this is mission accomplished.
Yeah, and it seems like, as I read your article, which I recommend people do, it's so great. But one of the people said, correct me if this is not the exact quote, this is what power looks like. This is motivating for them, that they believe something they put out there has made its way to the former president and Republican nominee. And he's saying it every single day.
Yeah, if you remember that moment during the last debate, the former debate, where Donald Trump mentioned the Proud Boys and said, stand back, stand by. Right. It's a very similar thing where these tiny groups basically operate on the internet and go and terrorize small communities, but don't make a huge national impact. When they do these things on the internet, that's where it's expected to stay. They don't expect that the president or the would-be president will actually amplify these claims. So for them, again, this is really like Christmas. They seek to recruit, to intimidate, to strike fear in the hearts of people in these communities, and to move the GOP further towards extremism. That is their stated goal. And with this, an SPLC researcher told me they've absolutely succeeded.
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yes. They've succeeded.
They've succeeded. Okay, Peter, so to your point earlier, of course, the president has said wild things. He's trafficked in conspiracy theories since he began running for office. He's gone after migrants, that's for sure, countless times in the past. I guess the key question for 2024 for November is whether people's appetite, and I'm talking particularly about these undecided, these middle voters who will decide this election, if their appetite for it is markedly different than it was in 2016, if this actually ends up hurting and not helping him.
Yeah, I mean, look, it works for his base, obviously. This has been a base election, as it often is with Donald Trump, and he is speaking to people who agree with him and agree that the border has been a disaster. Obviously, for a long time during the Biden administration, there were very high rates of people coming over the border, and that did create hardships on a lot of communities. That is for real, even if they're not eating cats and dogs. But, the numbers coming across the borders have fallen back to the lows that they were when Biden took office, when Trump gave up office. And I think that the people he needs to win over in order to get past the 45% or so that he's got in order to get to a win aren't motivated by that in the same way. So that's the real trick. Is it about getting turnout among people who are already persuaded by him, or reaching out to people who haven't been persuaded by him so far?
So I want to bring in Carlos Curbelo, former Republican congressman from Florida. And Congressman, I want to play some more of what the former president said just the other day.
As the people of Arizona understand better than anyone else, under Kamala Harris, our country is under a thing called invasion. Did you ever hear the word invasion? Just like a military. It's like a military invasion. We're being conquered, and we are being occupied by a foreign element.
When you're talking about a race so close, we're in swing states like Arizona and Nevada, it could be decided by immigrants. Does this rhetoric have the potential to hurt him with voters, even if it helps him with his base? What's your take on it?
Chris, I think Peter made this point, and it's important to highlight it. Immigration is an issue where Republicans can and should be on offense. It is one of the great weaknesses of the Biden-Harris administration. We can take a look at any poll to confirm that. The problem with Donald Trump is that he doesn't just go on offense. Sometimes he becomes offensive. in discussing immigration in particular. And the very few undecided swing voters that are out there reject that kind of rhetoric. They do not want to hear people being denigrated. They don't want to hear people being dehumanized. They want to know what the solutions are for a better immigration system. So Donald Trump, once again, is showing why he is his own worst enemy.